JSB Trails. Welcome to JSB Trails, a beacon from the past, lighting the future.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's another episode of the JSB Trails, a beacon from the past, lighting the future. And definitely today we have a beacon from the past, ladies and gentlemen, a man who is the historian of JSB. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and we speak of none other than Mr. Herbie Honnigan. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he has been a member of the board. He knows the JSB inside out, and we're going to find out from him today the whole history behind the Jamaica Society for the Blind. Good day, Mr. Honnigan.
Okay, greetings everyone. Yes, this is Herbie Honnigan, and I'm a former member of the board of the JSB, and my time was from 1976 to 1980, so I was a 4 years member.
All right, so we will actually get there in a moment, but we like to start at the beginning. Where was Herbie Honnigan born?
Oh, I was born in St. James in a district called Wims Road.
Wims Road, where in St. James is that?
That is in southern St. James. That's near Somerton. Most people would know where Somerton is.
Right.
So it was just in neighboring district.
Oh, cool. And what was life like for you growing up? Firstly, were you born blind?
Well, I wasn't really born blind as far as I understand, but it came on very early. And yes, before I could remember anything. So I didn't remember having sight.
Right. And what was life like for you growing up?
Life was very interesting. I just operated as a normal person, as if I had sight. I had my brother. Anywhere he was going, he wanted me to come, and sometimes we go to bush and shoot bird. And
you never shoot bird, though?
No, but put the bird in my hand so that I could feel the type of bird,
Right.
And we ride donkey, we ride all kind of,
Yes.
all kind of things, plant things, He had full sight, so we could, And then I played with other children, we run up and down, and even on the road, because at that time you hardly have any cars or anything that.
Right. And you speak of your brothers. Tell us a little bit about the family, the parents, and how many siblings did you have?
Okay. I had 4 sisters and 1 brother.
Right. And you and your brother was all over the place.
Right.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
And when did you start school? Did you go to primary school or Salvation Army School for the Blind was your first school?
Before I went to the Salvation Army School for the Blind, we had a basic school that was opened in Wims Road when I was about 10. And my mother and the teacher agreed that I could go and sit in and listen to the little things that the children were learning.
Right.
And even then, I was very interested in education, just wanted the opportunity. When my sisters come home and my brother come home from school, I would just take their books and appear, look like I'm looking in the book.
Right.
Just to, and so I didn't go to the school for the blind till I was 13.
Wow. Why?
Yeah.
Why though?
Because we didn't know anything much about the school. That district was very
rural.
Very rural.
Yeah.
And hard, because if you notice, I said, when I was 10, that a basic school was open, so there was no school in the district.
Right.
Before, not even a basic school.
Right. And tell us a little bit now, parents. Tell us a little bit about them. What kind of parents were they like? They had 4 girls and 2 boys. But were they strict? Tell us about the parents.
Okay. My mother and father lived for a while together. They were not together, separated. My sisters were my mother's children, not my father's children.
Oh, okay.
So it's only myself and my brother, my father have.
Right.
Yeah. But my sisters, 2 sisters, then myself, then 2 others.
Right. Oh, and your brother was the last one.
No, my brother was older than I am. Was about 3 years older than I am.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right. So tell us now, how did your parents find out about the school for the blind?
Well, my aunt got a job in Montego Bay, which is the capital of St. James. And one day she came to Windsor to look for her relatives there and saw me, and she asked my mother, she said, suppose you should pass on. What would happen to this little boy, And from that she started to check to see where I could get some opportunity for personal development and education and so forth.
Right.
And then she checked at when she went back to Montego Bay, she checked with the inspector for the parish council and the Salvation Army have a corps in Montego Bay. So she was able to find out from there. And it is from there now the inspector came up to Windsor to interview my mother, myself, and the family.
Right.
And we were not sure because it was not a joy to leave the district. You used to a place and you used to the people, and the people were concerned. So I wonder if he.
I wonder if he go alright when he go town.
Right.
Yeah, if they go give him the food what we used to fit to him eating down here
and all that.
Yeah.
And whether he's going to come back or not, or you just going away forever.
Right.
So we questioned the inspector, and he said, well, yes, you'll be going to school and you'll be coming back for holidays and so on. So they said, all right, we said, we would go to the school and for the term, and when we come back from holiday, we would know whether or not it would be right to go back.
Right.
So we would make the try. The idea is that try it and see how it,
Yes, man. Yes, man. So tell us, can you remember your first day of school?
Well, first day. First of all, I went. The inspector brought me up to Kingston. So I went with another girl. Another young lady who was blind.
Do you remember who that was?
By the name of Gloria Good.
Right.
And when we went, we didn't go to school the same day. Naturally we rested and prepared, Well, the first day now, because everything was strange, everybody around us was strange. The Salvation Army officers were strange. They were very nice, very, very loving, welcoming and everything.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the bell ring, the bell to get up, because you have the bell that ring for students to get up, to wait.
To wake up.
6:15.
Right.
And then they were telling me all the customs and the whatever,
Right,
and so forth. And you got, get up, get ready, and go to breakfast and come back, and then bell ring again for assembly, and so on, So it was interesting, and I was very, glad or grateful. My concern is, I had that longing for education.
Right.
And the school, and I was glad that I was able to go to a school. And I know that the basic school was there, and I was able to learn a little thing like deity, mathematics, that kind of thing.
Right.
So when I went to school, and I learned little poems and little memory gems and so I was not fully,
out of it. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
But I couldn't learn anything to read or write or doing. I could only do mental arithmetic.
Right.
So I had no idea about reading and writing.
So at age 13, you went to the school, and you know that, listen, me have to go buckle down now because...
Right. That is the thing. Because I should have been there at the age of 5.
Right.
5, and I missed 8 years. So I had to catch up because you leave at 18, regardless of what age you got there. At 18 is your leaving time.
Right.
And whatever you reach or you don't reach, that is where you leave.
So tell us about the progression. What was it like, you know?
Okay, well, one of the good things is that the motivational part of this, not the education, yes.
Right.
I mean, but the school, you are motivated to love school.
Right.
You know, you learn songs, you learn music, you do all kind of, you know, little points that teach you lessons of life, you know.
Yeah.
You learn about nature, about the bees and the birds and the ants
Trees,
and all them things,
yeah.
how they operated, you know, and those kind of things in your kindergarten class.
Right.
And plus, Braille was the next thing. Learning Braille means you learn to read by your fingers.
Right.
Now, the Braille is not the same shape letters as the sighted letters. They are dots. And when I started learning Braille, and the officer put the paper in my hand,
you're expecting the sighted letters?
I expected the sighted letters. And then when I feel the dots, to me, I said, what is this?
What is this now?
How am I? The dots that. And then as time goes on, you'll know what each means and how the position of the dots. And you know, until after a while, my first Braille teacher was a Salvation Army officer from America by the name of Shirley Cox. And then my second Braille teacher was a blind teacher by the name of Rudolph Mills. He started teaching from 1945.
Whoa.
That is when 1 year after I was born. So when I went to school, he was 17. He was teaching there quite a number of years before
you came.
Right. So he was my second Braille teacher, and by that time I was able to read books.
Right.
And so forth. Then my third Braille teacher was the wife of the manager, Captain Wicks.
Right.
Mrs. Wicks was my third Braille teacher. And after that, no, we didn't have to have no Braille teachers. We were able to go on our own.
Right. But before we go any further, which year was this? Did you go to the school for the blind?
1957.
1957.
22nd of January, 1957.
Right.
And it was a Tuesday. I can't remember the day.
Right. Whoa. So you progressed through school, and as you said, you had to leave at 18.
Yes, 18 was when you leaving.
Right. So at 18, what were some of the things that you achieved?
Okay. By the time I reached 18, when I was 16, I was able to take the first year Jamaica local examination. So it means I was able to finish the normal primary school.
Right.
And then was able to take that, and I got a pass that in class 2. But I passed, whatever class, once you pass, you pass. And then in 1961, now when I was 17, I took the second year Jamaica local, because in those days we have the Jamaica local exams, right?
Right.
We didn't have JSC, and so we had JLE.
Right.
Jamaica local, and it was 7 subjects, and I passed 6 subjects out of the 7, but fail maths.
Right.
And once you fail a subject any at all, you fail the whole exam.
Whoa.
Yes, in those days. So you have to pass all. In first year you take 6 subjects, and you have to pass all of them. Second year you take 7, because English literature was added to the second year. So,
right.
All right. Third year you take 8. Now I took, in 1962 I was 18, but I got the extra time because I was doing third year.
Right.
The third year, so I got that extra, and I took it in July and passed it. My grade was 5th in the island, because it wasn't just the school for the blind that take this exam.
It was all
over the island.
Right.
So my position was 5th, and in those days, if you get between 1 to 12, you were qualified to get a full government grant to go to high school.
Right.
So I was in that batch. So I went straight in the next year to Excelsior.
Right.
In fourth form.
And then now Excelsior was a total different school because
Right.
you're now among fully sighted children.
Yes.
What was that like?
Very interesting. Okay. Because of the training that I got at the school for the blind. You see, one of the training is that you don't just sit down and you operate as normal as possible.
Yes.
Whatever you can do for yourself, you do it. You don't wait on somebody to do.
Yes.
So when I went, and the teacher the teacher I took with second and third year, she was a very strict person. People didn't want to go to her class because she was very kind of, but she was saying that she was preparing us for the community,
right,
for outside,
right,
because at this school, she would say we were pampered, we were, Salvation Army, and so she prepared us for to go out there, because out there rough,
right.
So by the time we went to Excelsior, I was able to cope,
right,
and the children, the rest of the students, everybody got on it's as if I wasn't blind.
Right.
If I'm taking a book from one classroom to the other, because you don't stay in one classroom, you do a subject in this classroom and you
move to another
classroom for another subject. And we were together, and they wanted to carry a book.
Yeah, man. 3-4 students want to carry a book.
Yes. And sometimes if you say, it's all right, man. And then I also had a typewriter, a manual typewriter, because you have to type for you didn't know Braille,
Right,
so you have to write. So we also learned typing.
Right.
To type so that the teacher you could do homework and you could do tests on the teacher. So I had to take both the manual typewriter and my Perkins Braille, which is a Braille writer.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
So you had to take both to school?
Both to school, yeah.
Whoa.
But remember, the good thing that we didn't have to take the bus.
Right.
The headmaster, the principal
would drop it to school.
Would drop us to school and come back.
Right.
Come back, in the evening to school. So it was quite good. And when I started first in fourth form, one of the teachers came in. So the book, I had my Braille literature book, just as others have their normal sighted book.
Yeah.
It were doing Macbeth, the book Shakespeare.
Yeah, by Shakespeare.
So she was asking everybody else to read paragraphs.
Right.
So I noticed she wasn't asking me to read anything.
Right.
So I said, Miss, could I read something from my book also? She said, can you read? So that, to show that, she didn't know it.
Right.
So what would I be doing in a high school in fourth form if I couldn't read? It means that because I couldn't read their type of writing, she thought that I wasn't able to read at all. So after that, I read paragraphs just like the rest of them, same wording and everything.
Yeah.
So after a while, everything, she asked me, I was just like a normal person.
Right.
To read from my Braille book. Same words and everything. And so,
And Excelsior, you left Excelsior and...
All right, Excelsior now, I spent 2.5 years in Excelsior. I went to fourth form. And from there, you get your test and you go up to fifth,
right,
and lower fifth, and then the normal. Because it was 1964 that the school changed over from senior Cambridge to GCE.
Okay.
Right. And I took the exam in 1965 in June. I was there and I did 5 subjects. Well, really, 5 I did for the exam, but I did 2 optional, like Latin and maths were optional.
Right.
I did those, but I didn't do those for exam. because in maths it was difficult for us to do as blind.
That's blind, yes.
Because geometry and everything.
And them things there, yeah, man.
You know?
Even till
so
this
to
day.
drop maths.
Even about till this day.
To drop maths.
Right.
Because I didn't want, and because I'd fail it in second
Second
year.
year, still.
Arithmetic, and I'd pass it in third year because you had to pass 8 subjects in third year.
Right.
But maths was one of them I passed it. But I didn't want to take any chance in
With the maths again.
with the maths
Yeah,
again.
right.
So I dropped maths. I did Spanish instead, history, Bible knowledge, literature, and language.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So maths and Latin. Well, I did Latin. I was hoping to do it for the exam, but the teacher had to leave. Had to leave because so I didn't do it up to the exam.
And you took those.
Yes.
And after leaving Excelsior now, what other avenues did you pursue?
Right. Because of the short time I had in school and a whole, both in primary and and the and my health was affected. It affected my health to a point. Plus,
when you when you say affected your health, give us a little more detail.
All right. What happened is that when I was a baby, I understand I was very ill. And it seemed as if I had a stomach problem from that time.
Right.
And when you had to, and so indigestion was part of the problem.
Okay.
The food didn't digest as it normally should. So when you go to school now and have to concentrate so much,
right,
and had to do, and you're not getting the full value of the food that you died, after a while it affects you,
right?
Yeah, because remember you have to do more than normal, because I have to catch up,
right,
and so forth. My health was affected, so I decided. At first, I thought I would go in for teaching, and my teacher at the school asked me, "Why don't you go in for teaching?" But guess what happened? I said to myself, if I was to go in for teaching, I would have to spend about 3 or 4 more years in college.
Right.
That would not be good for me, because when I went to sixth form at Excelsior in the first term. And I found that I was even kind of dozing off in class and sleeping tired. So I said, no, it's best to leave that academic strain and do something practical.
Right.
Which I didn't have to do when the studies are, So when I left, I didn't continue with the sixth form.
Right.
I left and started to do what you call audio typing. In audio typing, you do, before that you do just the normal typing. But in this case now, you're going to do audio typing. You have your earphone, you do it's a sort of secretarial, you settle down now to do a secretarial type of work.
Right. So it's like you're listening to the notes and typing it.
You're listening, the person dictates on a tape,
right,
and you have your earphones so that nobody else can hear, and you have your thing, something at your foot,
right,
that when you ease up the thing, the dictation stop.
Okay.
And when you put your foot back and it plays.
Wow.
So you alone here,
right,
and you are now able, and you know how to type the not just an ordinary letter, but business letters and other
business documents and
so on.
Right.
No, I decided to specialize. But my friends and the teachers they were surprised because I didn't show a lot of interest in that field while I was going to school, the secretarial field.
Right.
And they were surprised that no, I'm going to, because I went to the office and asked the headmaster, so I would like to do the secretarial. So they were surprised.
That this was at the school?
At the school for the blind.
Right.
After leaving Excelsior. So they were surprised because they thought we would want to continue with the, but it wasn't good for my health. Right. I know what I was going through.
Right.
So but some people would think that, you should just continue and pursue to university. No. I decided so the man who fights and run away live to fight another day.
Right.
So I've done secretarial, and you see, when I'm doing something, I concentrate and do it well. My concern is do your best, whatever you're doing.
Right.
Because when I came to school, School for the Blind, the first exam I took, I came fourth in my form, in my class. The second exam with the same person's annual exam, I came fourth again. And the third time I took the exam, in my class, I came first with persons who were there long before
you.
So you do your best. You don't compare yourself with anybody. You come forth, but you know so well you have done your best.
Right.
You don't say because you didn't come first at first.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So I was very So now I decided to switch to secretarial. And I continued there, and I worked at the school for 7 years. 7 years, and was a member of staff.
Okay.
Not a student this time.
Right.
Member of staff. Because the headmaster called me and said, Herbie, we're very pleased because I got 6 weeks, The idea is that I would get 6 weeks as a trying period. Because they were thinking that I was not going to do it because I wasn't interested in it. So I said, all right, as a compromise, they said, all right, we'll give you a 6 weeks trial. And after that, we'll know whether. And after the 6 weeks, I got 6 weeks more. Not because I was doing well. And after 3 months now, I was on staff.
Right.
And you said, well, they were very pleased.
And you said you worked there for 7 years.
Right?
And then after that?
After that, while I was working at this school, a gentleman from the United Nations came to visit Jamaica from the International Labour Organization by the name of Mr. Johnson. And he came and visited the school, and he saw the work that I was doing. So he said, but this, because he came to set up the Council for Persons with Disabilities. He was an international expert on disability vocational rehabilitation.
Right.
But he had some people working with him, but he could not send out their letter because they said spelling and
everything was off.
And he was there for 3 months and could not. So when he came, he saw my work and he said, I would like a person like this in my office. So the headmaster spoke to me one day and said, Mr. Johnson, the ILO, he said, you'd like if, So I said, so Major Wicks now. So he said, well, would you like to give it a try? So I said, well, Major, let me have 2 days to think about it. And after 2 days now, I said, well, Major, I think I would like to give it a try. I'm not feeling so well, but I would like to,
Right.
All right. And from that now, I started to work with Mr. Johnson's office. His office was under the Ministry of Labour. At that time, it was the Ministry of Pensions and Social Security.
Oh!
There was not...
not Labour?
It wasn't Labour.
Right.
Labour was a different ministry.
Okay.
So this ministry now was the Ministry of Pensions
and Social Security.
Okay. And therefore, and when Mr. Johnson, so I worked with him for 2 years. And when he left, I continued to work with the ministry, and I got promotion, and I was appointed, that is from 1973 to 1976, I was appointed as a full-time worker in 1976, having worked for 3 years. And I worked with the ministry for 30 years. 30 years in various areas of secretariat.
Right. Nice. And let's get to the meat of the matter now. How did your association with the Jamaica Society for the Blind started?
Okay. Our association was called the Progressive Blind Association. Because one of the things is that when you left school in those days, there was very little or no opportunity
Right.
after that, after you leave school. So many persons who left school is not that, and they didn't reach anywhere. It's not that they didn't have the ability, but they did not get the opportunity,
Right.
because the school was not recognized by government. The school started in 1927 and was recognized in 1959 by the government. So it means that there was very little academic
Right.
education between 1927 and 1959. We recognize that once you left the school, if you did not reach academic level, or in my case, it was an exceptional case, but because the school said I did better then, put it way, than any other person between 1927 and the time when they left in 1979.
So, Baz, you were a trendsetter, Baz.
Well, in a way, yes, and I have to give God thanks for that too,
Right.
coming out of a deep rural area and so
Coming
forth.
to school at 13.
At the age of 13.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you this, both my mother and my father were unable to read because both of them were the first children for their parents.
Yes.
And they had to take care of
Of
their
the younger siblings.
So
Right.
they were not able to go to school to learn anything much.
Right. So back to the BPN, or the Blind Progressive
Blind Association. Okay. At that time, I was working with the council.
Council for Persons with Disabilities. Right.
At the time. So when I came from home, I heard somebody told me that we have an association called the Progressive Blind Association. So I was invited to come to a meeting. So when I got to the meeting and hear how the people, but they were aspiring and they were young, I said, yeah man, this is good. So I decided to become a member.
So I'm glad you went there.
Right.
Who were some of the members that you went there and saw?
All right. Persons like Derek Palmer was one. Arvel Grant. Leroy Duncan. Lytle Gavidan.
Right.
Joyce Walters. She was the vice chairperson. And it wasn't a lot of people, but the people were focused.
Right.
They knew exactly what they wanted, And
I think I heard that the meetings were held on the veranda of Ralph Combs.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we started on the veranda of Ralph Combs. Now, Ralph was also an Excelsiorian. Ralph was there a year before me. When I went to Excelsior, Ralph was there a year before, and he left a year before I left.
Right.
So he was a senior person.
Right.
Yes. And he was a teacher. He taught industrial arts. He was interested in the physical, making things.
Man.
So he didn't teach like literature and history and everything, and teach industrial,
Right.
So, but his veranda, that's where we had the meeting. And the meetings were it was progressive, but sometimes it was very fiery, because each person sometimes want to push their agenda.
Yeah.
But when you look at the whole objective of the thing, the objective of the thing was good. So what I did know, since I was at the council, and we had a Peace Corps lady from America by the name of Carol Stone. She was dealing with disability, and she decided to call a meeting of all the agencies that deal with persons with disability, not just blind.
Right.
So I now decided to invite the members of the Progressive Blind Association, of my association.
Right.
And it was real good. From there now, we were able to voice our opinions, our experience and so forth concerning disability. Okay. However, at that time, we had 3 groups of blind persons. at that time. The Progressive Blind Association was one.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the School for the Blind Old Students Association.
Right.
And we have the Adult Blind Club.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Adult Blind Club was a social club. Just, you meet and you do, you sing,
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that because they didn't have the understanding about what blind people could do. It's person who left school and they want to keep themselves happy. And
Mm-hmm.
the School for the Blind Old Students Association now was not so much focused on the outside school leavers.
Right.
They were more concerned about
the students at school.
Students.
Yeah.
So the Progressive Blind Association now was the association was concerned about development for persons who, who had
left school.
Left school and were interested in their continued personal development and careers and all that stuff.
Right.
So when my colleagues came to the council for the meeting now, for all disability groups and all that, these associations now, these groups, asked the Progressive Blind Association to be their mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we were asked to be, to advocate for disability on our own.
Right.
So we were the mouthpiece of most of the other organizations.
Right.
Not only the disability, people with disabilities, no, but also the agencies, the persons who look after those persons.
Oh, okay.
were respectful of the Progressive Blind Association.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time that the persons with disabilities had a chance to voice their own experience,
Yes.
on their own behalf. Before that, it was persons speaking on behalf of the disability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Persons who were not disabled, but they had good intention.
Right.
But they didn't know what the person with disabilities aspirations were.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and tell us now, how did the blind, the BPA, how did they get involved in the JSB now?
Okay. We asked for a meeting. The chairperson, Mrs. Dorette Bent, she was the executive secretary at the Jamaica Society for the Blind.
Mm-hmm.
We asked to have a meeting because first of all there was nothing was going on at when I say nothing,
Mm-hmm.
there was not even a Braille class was going on.
Right. So what was the Jamaica Society for the Blind like at that time then?
At that time, the Society for the Blind had three main areas of focus. One, to provide glasses
Mm-hmm.
for persons who needed it.
Right.
So it was to help to prevent blindness,
Mm-hmm.
Two, to distribute eye drops for persons with glaucoma
Mm-hmm.
all over the island. And three, to help to give like emergency cash. A person don't have a dinner, don't have any,
Yes.
and you could go there and get a little money, but there was no developmental plan.
Right.
Because the people didn't know, they were on the board, they meant well, but they had no idea about development for the blind.
Right.
Now, we asked for a meeting with the executive director at the JSB, and it was granted. There were 4 of us, PBA people,
Mm-hmm.
PBA members. And I was asked, I got a letter, personal letter, after that, asking me if I could sit on the board of the JSB.
Mm-hmm.
Because they thought, So, I got a letter from the JSB,
Right.
inviting me to sit. So I said, at first, I said, what would it wouldn't make sense, man, because I'm not going. But I said, well, listen, if I'm going to be there, changes will have to be made.
Right.
I'm not going to be there, just sit down and become just another member of the one member, because only one blind person could sit on the board out of 14 members. So I said, no, if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there, but my organization, we're going to work with them to bring changes to the JSB. Because the constitution, the blind persons were not members of the JSB. No blind person was member of the JSB. You remember it was Jamaica Society for the blind, but it was not of the blind. So one of the main things was to get the constitution to change, that members of the blind community could be members of the JSB.
Right.
And it took some time because, remember, no, we had to write letters, we had to do, quite a number of, get the ministry had to be involved. Ministry of Social, at the time now become Social Security. They dropped pensions,
Right.
so Ministry of Social. And we had to show the ministry that we need that we had a meeting with the minister, and the main focus was the democratization of the Jamaica Society for the Blind. That was the main topic of that meeting.
Right.
So we brought certain proposals to the ministry helped to finance the JSB. It was a good amount of the funds came from the ministry.
Right.
But and they used to send back money. The JSB used to send back money to the ministry to saying that, like what I said, they didn't need that amount of money because. So when we had this meeting with the ministry, we showed them that there was no program that this was. So when the ministry called a meeting with the board plus myself as a member of the board at that time. I was the only member, so I had to represent the board. But that time we had already given the ministry a lot of information. So when the ministry called a meeting with the rest of the board and myself, I was there also, but I hardly needed to say anything because the ministry had everything. So the ministry asked the board, no, you have sent back money to us from time to time, so you don't need it. What program do you have to develop the... And they couldn't produce anything.
Right.
So the ministry said, but no, things have to change, that the blind persons have to participate so that they could, there was no... So therefore the constitution had to change so that all blind persons could become members,
Right.
and had voting rights. And because of that now, PBA members most were voted on the board,
Right.
and some of the long-time members were not, were voted off.
Right.
And so
what was that like? No, you guys were practically running the board of the JSB.
yes, it created a problem because those persons, even some of our blind persons, because they're used to this type of JSB that just, that what I just described a while ago before.
Right.
And they thought we were...
In what we would say nowadays, you're stopping our food.
Yes,
you're stopping our food.
And as if we were firebrands, they call us firebrands.
Right.
So the adult blind club persons, especially those are the long-time blind persons who left school long time, were not in agreement with what was happening at the society, with the new trust.
Right.
They were not in agreement. However, I served on the board, so in 1976, that was the time when I was invited to be on the board. There were two persons that were there before me, but they resigned because nothing was going on, and they thought that makes sense. When I went, I decided changes have to be made.
Right.
By 1978, now the constitution changed, and blind persons were able to be part,
Right.
so forth. And the first blind chairperson was Derek Palmer.
The fiery Derek Palmer.
Yes. The PVA hat,
Yes.
But Palmer is by nature, it means well, but sometimes he can be misunderstood as if he's overboard.
Right.
He was full of zeal.
Right.
But sometimes lack of wisdom could create problems.
Right.
Because even sometimes, I remember in the PBA meeting, because certain things PBA almost mash up. Because he was so, he was so
passionate.
Then the PBA, people decide to leave and not come back. So I had to go back and try to rally them round. I said, no man, don't worry about that man. Mean no harm. Him just, And then I became vice chairperson. I was elected vice chairperson of the PBA. And Palmer was still the chairperson. I wasn't interested in being the chairperson because since I was working at the council already,
yes.
I didn't want my name to be I didn't want to go too much forefront in the revolution.
Right.
But I was able to produce. I was able to do it. So I was vice chairperson, and I did most of the secretarial work for the revolution.
Right.
Quite, Yeah.
So tell us now, when Derek took over as the chairman, what were some of the things that you guys tried to implement, and what were some of the hurdles you came upon?
One of the things we tried to we implemented was to get blind. We got a typist, a blind typist, to be a member of staff of the JSB, and one of the main reasons for that was to show the public that blind persons could do certain type of work.
Right.
Good. So it was. So she was there. Another was to have Braille class. Yes, newly blind persons needed to learn because they couldn't go to the school.
Go to school, right?
Because their age, but they need to learn Braille, and not only that, they need to learn what you call mobility,
right?
To be able to get around by not just somebody holding them and all the time.
Get around by themselves.
They need to get around by themselves. And we at the school were able to have the privilege of having a blind gentleman from England by the name of Philip Lucas, who was a captain of the Salvation Army also, who came. He had a guide dog and so forth, but the guide dog was not permitted to work in Jamaica.
Right.
But he was able to move around. He introduced the white cane, and that is, which is now on the road code. When you see the white cane, you know that, And we were able to get the confidence to move around. And he taught us certain techniques, like when you're going across the road, what you should do,
right.
And so forth. Because he used to move around in London, yes, as a blind person. So he had the technique. So we were able to introduce some of these techniques to the newly blind persons who came to the JSB. And in addition, there was a gentleman from America called Reverend Whiters. He was the first mobility teacher of the JSB.
Okay. Earlier.
So all these programs now, PBA were able to implement these things.
Right. And as you said earlier, at the outset, you guys, you weren't ready in terms of running the JSB properly. Who were some of the outside persons now who you guys got help from in really settling down and getting the JSB on the right track?
Okay, we had Miss Vivian Morgan, who was the secretary at the JSB for many years. We had persons, Mrs. Delevanti. She was part of the JSB, but she in the revolution, she didn't run for chairperson, right? Because she recognized that changes are coming, and she was a chairperson at the time of the revolution, so she wasn't interested to continue. We had persons like Miss Dulcie James and Mrs. Joyce Miller. these were persons who, were able to carry on day-to-day work, because the PBA members were more or less occupied. I was working, Palmer was working, you understand? Grant, Harvey, Grant was working, you understand?
Right.
So these persons carried on, but decision making was done by the board.
Right. And another thing I picked up from the past interviews, that this location that the JSB is now wasn't the first location.
No.
Right.
The first location was at 1 South Avenue in Kingston Garden, and it was at one little room, one little office. Nothing could be, nothing substantial could go on. It was just administration.
And tell us now, how did you guys come to purchase this property?
Okay, the board decided to sell that property at 1 South Avenue and purchase a house with quite a number of rooms, I think it's 8 Central Avenue or something like that. 8 Central Avenue. And we were able to, so much of the work, much of the programs that we had were carried on at 8 Central Avenue. And then it was decided that the 8 Central Avenue was too small, was too limited. And so we were able to get a church to buy that now. And we got that money to purchase here.
I heard a story about that, getting the church to buy it.
Yes.
I heard that story.
Yes,
People, if you want to hear that story, please listen back to the Orville Grant interview. Right. And you guys raised the funds to purchase here.
Yes.
Right. And what kind of place was it when you came here? Was it well put together? What kind of work did you guys have to put in?
Quite a good amount of work. Well, at that time, when here was purchased, I wasn't a member of the board at that time. But Mr. Wilbert Williams was the person. He was he had contacts, and he had, he was a person. He wasn't a PBA member,
right?
But he was a person. When we got the constitution changed, he did a lot to develop the place here. He did, because he had many contacts, and he was a good diplomat, and
right.
Which we were not. We didn't have the diplomatic. We got direct. Look, man, we need this thing have to change, but we did not. But he had good amount of diplomatic experience, plus he had a lot of contact. So a lot of it was done through his instrumentality, here.
Right.
And then Mr. Harvey Grant now became the first blind for visually impaired executive director. Right. So having become executive director now, and remember PBA, he was a PBA man, so he was able to implement a lot of the things that we had in mind.
Right. Nice. And the JSB started growing from there.
Yes.
And have you continued to be involved in the JSB over the years? Probably not on the board, but getting involved and.
Yeah, man. What happened is that, I was elected on the board in the 90s.
Oh.
There were policies. You see, everything had different changes, and there were things that, what I wanted to do. I wasn't interested in serving on the board. I was interested in serving on a rehabilitation committee, practical, dealing with the person who get blind, not on an administrative level,
right?
Not on the board level. What I was serving for 4 years before.
So you were more interested in an adjustment to blindness program,
right. So that was my interest, to get the newly blind person, because that was a serious, when a person had his sight and lose
it. Yes.
Many of us went to school. lost our sight as children. So
So that's all we know.
So we don't know. So we got used to it. When we go to school, you play things, you sing song, you play so we don't think not about, but the adult blind person who lose their sight now, they are going to look back when they had this, and they are going to have their friends who are going to say, and a lot. So we had to help to adjust those persons to adjust.
Right.
And plus, I had the experience from the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities to meet with experts from United Nations, ILO. I worked with Mr. Johnson for 2 years, who was an expert in disability. Then I had interaction with persons from America, like Inter-American Foundation, Partners of the Americas, and so Rehabilitation International. So I had a lot of experience. So I wanted to deal with the ground level, not the administrative level. Right. Because that was already doing well, Right. So my work was to deal with.
Right. And you said you were serving in that capacity in the early 90s?
Yes, as a member of the board, but I didn't remain on the board.
Right.
I didn't remain on the board for much time.
Okay.
Because it wasn't, in other words, that was not my interest anymore. I had accomplished my interest in the revolution.
Oh, okay.
And the board was going on quite well.
Right.
So my role was to go now to deal with the people now. For instance, quite a number of blind persons who have now newly blind adults who have been adjusted. I was able to reason with them, to encourage them and show them your possibilities and so forth. And so I didn't have to name any specific person, but one of the famous persons now, who is also an international person, I was one of those who encouraged that person.
And that would
when the person was just getting blind.
Who is that?
You want me to name the person?
Yes, man.
The Senate.
Senator Floyd Morris.
Right.
Definitely.
One of those persons.
So, when you look back at the whole revolution and what you guys did for the Jamaica Society for the Blind at the time, how do you feel now seeing its progression and the services that it is offering now? What's your views?
Okay. Well, I am very proud of where it has been now, because remember, from where it's coming from almost, zero program to reaching now where we have, so many various things going on. We have this is now the computer lab. When I was coming in, I said, but imagine, this could not have been thought of so many years ago.
Right.
All right. And this now I'm sitting in the computer lab, and we were interviewing, with the interview. Very interesting. So things like those. We have many programs now that we didn't have in those days.
Right.
And it's because of blind persons were able to it's the participation of blind persons who we had certain aspirations which were not being fulfilled.
Right.
And having the opportunity now we play an integral part in the decision making of the JSB. Plus we have other friends who are not blind, who are very interested in the progress of blind persons.
Right. Right.
So from both sides, the opportunity for blind persons is much more developed.
Right. And if you could say something to, a blind person who may be listening to this now, but he's sitting at home, probably newly got blind and he is at a crossroads now. What would you say to him now to get him to come out to the JSB, get involved?
Okay, I would say to that person, the first thing is the blindness of the natural eye, of the outer eye, does not mean the blindness of the mind. Your mind you can have vision, you can have aspiration, you can have development, but your normal eye may not be able to see. That is not the important thing, because it's your mind. So therefore, it's important to accept the fact that you're not seeing in the natural way. Accept that, so that you can go forward. One other thing is that rehabilitation it doesn't mean that you have to do things the same way that everybody else does it. As long as you can reach the same goal.
Right.
For instance, the blind person, you read with your fingers. You can't read with your eye because you can't see. But you achieve the same objective. A newly blind person, firstly, it's important to accept. Doesn't mean say you're to accept that thing, It don't mean that you are glad for it, But you accept. The reality is that you have changed your road. You are on a new road, and you're going to learn how to travel on that new road. So you're going to start, and you're going to look at other persons who were in your same position, who, because of their positive thinking, they have been able to overcome the hurdles and are successful. So you're going to look at trailblazers, people who were there, who had the same same traumatic situation that you were in, right? So don't think of, say, well, boy, what my friends going to say. I'm not. You are going to now learn a new thing now. Adjust yourself, and as I said, you're not glad for it, because nobody is glad. If you lose a foot, you're not going to. But if you can get another artificial foot, you can still walk.
Right.
Some people might not be used to you with the artificial foot, but the main thing is that you can walk.
Right. You have some level of independence. Right.
So a person who is getting blind, or if you are even totally blind, that doesn't mean that life is finished. That you have started now a new road, and you're going to get a good amount of good experience, that you will be able to even help others who come after you. Next thing is your talent. Now that's very important. Everybody has some talent need to be developed. So you have, first of all, you have ability, which you got from God has given. You're born with. Then you have ambition.
Right.
That is your focus. Where would you like to be? Sometimes you can't reach where you want to be immediately, and you may have to change your focus in order to be successful. Sometimes where we want to be is not realistic at the time. Sometimes we have to just change. Then you have ability, you have ambition, then you have talent. That is natural, whether it's music or craft or whatever talent you have. Everybody has some talent, something that if you get the opportunity, you will do well in. Then the next thing is opportunity, right? So these are the main things: ability, ambition, talent, opportunity, and positive thinking. With positive, knowing that you can reach, you can be successful. Don't look at where you're coming from. Look at where you would like to go.
Right.
Look forward. That is right to say. Look not backward. Face the future. duty called us. And I must say this too, that quite a number of blind persons have been able to help their parents when they become get a work and they're able to work, and their parents now are not able to help them anymore. The parents become elderly now, seniors, and they now have been able to help their parents and to have a family.
Right.
Some got married, some have a, whatever the person chooses in life. But you become successful in life. You become
you become somebody. You become independent. You can now run your own household.
Yes.
And these are the things that the JSB preach
Right.
every day. Come here and get yourself qualify for the outside world.
Right.
Yes, man.
I just want to say this too, that I've been writing songs and poems on disability as well to encourage persons who are newly disabled or become disabled or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't say disabled, we say
differently
able.
Yeah.
Because you are not disabled, You are just you only have a different way of doing things. Mm-hmm. You are not disabled in that you are able, you are still able, only that your ability is manifested in another way.
Right. And you say you have a song?
Yes, I have a song that I wrote for Jamaica Society for the Blind. Now the Jamaica Society for the Blind now is 68 years now. Song on the work and worth of the Jamaica Society for the Blind. That is right. You want me to sing it or to just read it?
Read it.
JSB, you are 68. We are so glad that you are still here. You helped so many to survive. We are thankful that you are still alive. In 1954, you arrived right on the fore as agent for the championing of blind persons who were suffering. Through rehabilitation, training, and employment, you're promoting our empowerment, and we know you will continue for generations in the future. The last verse. So forward in the spirit of unity, as we in celebrating our anniversary, and big up members, staff, and friends who through the years have been strengthening our society.
Yes, folks, and what a way to end this interview. We were speaking to Mr. Herbie Honnigan, man, the man with the history. Yes,
some of the history.
Yes, some of the history. He says some of the history, and that is JSB Trails. People need to know where the Jamaica Society for the Blind is coming from, and this is one of the pioneers. Again, thank you, Mr. Herbie Honnigan. My name is Damian Rose, and we'll see you next time with another guest right here on the JSB Trail.
Thank you for listening to JSB Trails, a beacon from the past, lighting the future. This has been a production of the JSB Library.